Hey everyone, it's that time again, the time to talk about Kingdom Hearts details. This video being dedicated to all sorts of trivia from Birth by Sleep. As usual, I have 10 topics to discuss, some more obvious or larger in scope than others. And thanks to everyone who commented on my YouTube post or on my Discord. I needed just a couple more points to round out the 10, and thanks to those I managed to complete the list. Now let's get started. The Unversed represent the negativity created when Ventus was separated from Ventus. Whilst they are under his control, they're also attracted to negativity in others, just as the Heartless gather around people with great darkness in their hearts. The Unversed designs are similar in nature to the emblem Heartless, in that they take a shape befitting of the world that they're in. However, Unversed have red eyes and a more defined face of sorts. Now, the detail I wanted to mention here is that, according to Nomura, the Unversed represent different emotions, his example being the classic flood type. These are supposed to represent irritation, and you can see this makes some sense with how skittish, quick and aggressive these are. Knowing this, I wondered what other emotions might some Unversed types represent. Honestly, I don't have particularly clear ideas on them, but I suppose it's up to our own interpretation. Like, I think the Bruiser has a kind of anxious vibe, the Red Hot Chili and similar are very excitable and hyper. Thornbites have an almost smoke look about them. Hair Razor definitely looks timid, being a rabbit and all. Then there's also the Jelly Shade, where the eyes make it look genuinely annoyed by something. Mandrakes don't so much have an emotion, as they give me an emotion, that being hatred for these obnoxious little things, and how they never despawn and... well, anyway, yeah, you could think hard about the Unversed if you wanted. Also, Terra fights 2 Unversed with Master in the name, which is especially cruel since he didn't make the rank of Master. Given this game's status as a prequel, we get to see Radiant Garden in all its glory, before it became corrupted and desolate. I quite like the details put into this world, and I'll talk about it at greater length when I come to do the exploration. But for now, I just want to point out a couple things, like how the level design is all connected up in a circle, letting you travel around the base of the castle, seeing it from all sides. That's pretty cool. I like that the world has a lot of design elements taken from previous games. From KH2 we have the castle design and the general town layout. You can see what they're building towards with the restoration effort in 2. There's also that mosaic in the square in Radiant Garden, and we see a similar sort of thing in KH2 where you fight Demix. It doesn't look exactly the same, but it's got the same style. But the world also takes notes from KH1. In that game it has a big water theme, and here there's the fountains reminiscent of the Hollow Bastion concept art. And this pool looks suspiciously like the one seen in the Rising Falls, just a lot bigger. Hey, there's even a reactor area, which is pretty cool. It's all quite nice to look at and fit together in your head, even if it doesn't match up exactly to the other games. Oh, also, Merlin has a globe of the Earth, yet another reference to our world that doesn't quite make sense, but it's just cool to see. Central America seems to be missing though, and my own country has completely vanished. I guess Brexit hit us pretty hard. A quick detail now. Being a PSP title, Birth by Sleep was technically limited in a few ways. One of these is capes. The Lingering Wheel in KH2 has a cape, as we can see, but in the original Birth by Sleep the PSP couldn't handle capes, so neither him, Terra's armor, or armor in general had capes. In the 2.5 port, they finally fixed this by having the Lingering Wheel sprout a cape after defeating Terra's Xehanort, at last matching up to KH2's appearance. There's not a lot else to say here obviously, it's just a little detail people may or may not know about. As usual, there's some weapon details to look at in Birth by Sleep. Firstly, each character, while they do share some keychains like Hyperdrive and other Disney ones, each blade is actually slightly different to account for the different sizes and styles of the 3. See here, Terra's Hyperdrive is very long, with multiple loops in the blade. Compare that to Aqua and Ventus, who have a far shorter design, especially Ventus, who usually has the shortest blade, though sometimes his and Aqua's look almost the same. It's a neat extra mile they went to with the designs of these. Then, the names of Keyblades have all sorts of meanings. One I quite like is Terra's Ends of the Earth, obviously a reference to the element he represents and his name. It can also represent his efforts. To go to the ends of the earth means to go to great lengths to achieve something. The Japanese name for this keychain translates to Gaia Bane, and of course Gaia is a Greek deity representing Earth, just as Terra is the name of the Roman equivalent. Lost Memory is an interesting blade because unlike Ends of the Earth and Stormfall, it isn't an upgraded version of Ventus' base weapon, the Wayward Wind. Also, while Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix gave us our first glance at Keyblade form changes, Birth by Sleep let us into a little more, showing Keyblade gliders for all three protagonists. And one last little weapon detail, Lee has a reference to Final Fantasy bombs on his frisbees. In my second KH1 details video, I looked at some of those found in Sora's room, so I figured why not do the same here for Ventus. One nice reference is the presence of books with familiar names. There's what looks to be a Final Fantasy Ultimania, one titled Kingdom Hearts, and a rather unsubtle Birth by Sleep book. Not that well hidden, but they're cool to see. He's got a telescope there and a big bottle with a cork in it. A bit young to be drinking, Ven. Also, on the floor are a couple more books, one of which is about philosophy. There's a lot of space-themed stuff here actually. There's astronomical symbols, Jupiter, Mars, this symbol I'm not quite sure what they're supposed to be. There's a creepy mask there too. And on the other side, a joined Venus and Mars symbol, which might seem odd to have if you think about the other uses of these symbols, but I'm pretty sure these are in the astronomy context, given the other stuff like the telescope. It certainly shows Ventus' desire to explore and learn more about the world/worlds. There's also a special Master of Keyblade poster. All in all, just like Sora and Roxas's rooms, this is full of details that provide a bit of character building for Ventus, and that's definitely appreciated. I figured for this video I'd include a little section about cut content. It's always interesting to see what was cut from games, and Birth by Sleep's biggest one was a world based on the Jungle Book. Much of the basic design still exists in the files, as you can see in a video I've linked in the description. It was scrapped because Neverland already has jungle elements, so you can understand why they'd want to avoid repetition. Pretty cool to see though, hopefully it'll be a real world in a game someday, just like Treasure Planet. There's also some more minor things like Pleakley from Lilo and Stitch not making it into the Deep Space world. A usable version of the Kingdom Key D named Lightseeker was originally going to be available for Ventus, and a scene with Sora and Riku playfighting never made it into the game, among other altered scenes from trailers. Less of a cut content and more of cut ideas. Final Fantasy characters were supposed to appear in Radiant Garden, but didn't due to technical restrictions and maybe story reasons as well, too many characters or something like that. And Laguna from Final Fantasy VIII was even considered to appear in the Mirage Arena. Admittedly, these omissions aren't really cool, they're kind of a shame actually, but I thought I'd mention them anyway. So why is the game named Birth by Sleep? Well, funnily enough, Nomura said he basically just wanted a game with by in the title, because most games don't have that, they have of or something like that. He also wanted to have the name represent something to do with computers, in this case an electronic bulletin board, just as we had Chain of Memories, COM, like the domain name, and Coded, which is obvious. A bulletin board connects people, so it fits with the theme of Kingdom Hearts, that's what he said. Then he also wanted sleep in the title because, of course. The full name works pretty well, I think. You can relate it to the eventual fates of these characters needing to be born again, in a manner of speaking. Ventus sleeping with his heart inside Sora's, Terra being trapped, and Aqua in a solitary place with a strange sense of time. Considering how odd Nomura's wishes were, he actually came up with a pretty good title that isn't just Kingdom Hearts 0, though we'd see something like that later with 0.2. After the Land of Departure gets thoroughly ruined by Xehanort, you can actually return there and bear witness to the now dark and eerie land. It's alarming to see this place in such a state. The swirling purple clouds overhead are very dramatic, the crumbling tower in the distance is a sad sight, but most of all, it's the music here that makes it so effective. Or rather, the lack of music. I mentioned in a previous video how effective a lack of music can be in Kingdom Hearts, giving examples such as End of the World, or Data Twilight Town when time freezes. This world is definitely up there in effectiveness. It's so creepy coming back here with the dead silence, the only noises being that of your character, or the now useless training hangars. I love how hitting these to make them spin still rewards you, but it's just one measly orb, There's something about that adding to the feeling of emptiness. You can't return to the forecourt, leaving only the summit and mountain path to walk through. Of course, you can also fight Mysterious Figure if you're feeling masochistic. But yeah, Destroyed Land of Departure has a very cool ambience and vibe, depressing, dark, and quite unnerving, setting up for its inevitable transformation into Castle Oblivion. So I think it's common knowledge now that Ericus and Xehanort's English voice actors, Mark Hamill and Leonard Nimoy, were chosen because Nomura wanted to basically have Luke Skywalker from Star Wars and Spock from Star Trek face off against another. It's a cool casting choice, and there's another detail about Ericus. Well, obviously his name is an anagram for square, though Nomura forgot that's why he named them that until he was reminded. His Keyblade has an E as the teeth, of course. And finally, something I didn't already know, he resembles Hironobu Sakaguchi in appearance, the creator of Final Fantasy. This is similar to how Yen Sid was based on Walt Disney. And of course, his name spelled backwards is... So Ericus really is a walking reference. Also sort of related to referencing things in characters, Aqua, Terra and Ventus are named after water, earth and air, just like how the Destiny trio are named for the sea, sky and land. It's cool because the BBS trio's names are more fundamental, the elements themselves rather than just the parts of the planet, indicating that they came before, and as we see they are the protagonists before Kairi, Riku and Sora, and they're each linked in some way. Lastly, some notes about Birth by Sleep's commands. I think there's some great visual effects and designs here, like with Chain of Memories. I mean, Ghost Drive for one example, that's a really cool command style. There's also some details like the confetti and fireworks commands, seeming purely visual but actually having a hidden effect, mostly useful for the original game's multiplayer, which obviously I can't show in this version. Confetti makes it so characters that get covered will get critical hits on the next attack, and fireworks will make the next damage you receive be 7 points worth. Also, shout out to the Snow White D-Link, which renames normal commands to each of the 7 dwarves in cleverly apt ways. An arrow, obviously for Sneezy, heal for Doc, warp for Bashful, confetti for Happy, sleep for Sleepy, Mini for Dopey, not too sure why on that one, and the same for Grumpy who has a raid. I guess raids are mean or something. I've said it before and I don't know if you count it as a detail, but I really like how there's lots of different magical effects in this game. More out there stuff like sleep, warp, ignite and poison that we don't really get too much of otherwise. Also, Mini is hilarious, I don't get tired of stomping on little miniature eyes Unversed. And that is about it for my list of details for Birth by Sleep. There are others, of course, these were just the ones I decided to pick out. But yeah, hopefully there was some interesting stuff in there, or maybe just reminders of things you already knew because you're a big BBS fan anyway. I don't know if I'll do any more of these anytime soon. With KH1 I was very passionate about doing it, and I had years of experience with the game. Plus it's just a very richly detailed game. KH2 and KH3 I also had a lot of experience with, but with the other games this isn't the case, and compiling a list like this was trickier, so thanks again to those who pointed things out. I'm not sure I have the passion needed to make a video like this for the other games, I guess we'll see, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed. There's links to social things in the description, you know the drill, and as always, thanks for watching.